Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. My name's Alice and today I'm going to be doing the Moody Book Tag. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I like to talk about books. I mainly talk about my giant TBR of over 200 books and my efforts to get through it. Today I'm going to be attempting the Moody Book Tag, which was originally invented by Slanted Spines. I'm going to link the original book tag from Slanted Spines in the description down below if you'd like to go and check that one out. And I've also seen this video on quite a few people's booktube channels. I think I'm going to link a few of the ones that I've really enjoyed in the description box down below so that you can go and check out some of the channels that I've been really enjoying. I slightly missed the boat on this tag. It seemed to be out when I was first on booktube, but it was one where I really liked the sound of the questions, so I thought that I would go ahead and do it anyway. So question 1 is, do you consider yourself a mood reader? I appreciate that it will not seem like I am really a mood reader from the content of my videos so far, because there's been a lot of TBR lists, there's been a lot of sticking to TBR lists quite rigidly, but I would consider myself in some ways a mood reader, and certainly before I started booktube I was very much just go with whichever book takes my fancy on a particular day. When I'd be getting to the end of a book, I would be thinking in the back of my mind, unless it's a really, really good book and then I can't think about anything but that book, I would be thinking, what am I going to read next? And I usually had an idea in my mind based on what my mood was. I do find that sometimes a book puts you in a mood for another particular book, and sometimes I go on sort of obsessive reading binges of a certain author or a certain character or a certain series. That's been known to happen quite a lot until I grow tired of that series or author, or think probably 5 books is enough in a row, and go on to something else. So I do consider myself a mood reader, and in a lot of ways that's why in TBRs that I've made, I make really big TBRs so that I will have lots of choice. Which leads me nicely on to question number 2. Do you set TBR lists and do you stick to them? Well, TBR lists are pretty new to me. I only came across this idea really as I was joining booktube a few months ago, and since then I have been making TBR lists every month in an effort to get through my giant overarching TBR of over 200 books. So I've been setting them as a way to help me try and navigate my way through reading 200 books in hopefully a not very long space of time. But as I've just said, I tend to make very long TBR lists that give me lots of options for what to read in a month. So far it hasn't happened to me that I haven't wanted to read what's on the TBR for the month, so I have been sticking to them quite a lot. I would like to think that if I came to a point where I thought I want to read this or I want to read that, I would go away and do it. I recently decided to reread an Agatha Christie book to join in with a discussion of that book, and I felt fine about doing that. I think just because something's on your TBR doesn't mean you can't vary it up if you are in the mood for something. I don't see them as a rigid thing that you have to stick to. Question 3 is, do books affect you emotionally? Does the mood of a book rub off on you? I think this is a really interesting question because I feel like I read books sometimes to try to change my mood, to give me some cheerfulness, to escape, to take me out of whatever it is that I'm thinking about at that time. Do they affect me emotionally? I am quite emotional in the way that I read. We've got a question about books that make you laugh and cry later, and books definitely do make me laugh and cry quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, I read a lot of crime, and I wouldn't say like the dark mood of those tends to rub off on me really. That would be kind of strange. If I think of anything else about it, I'll tell you in a minute. Question 4 is, when you're feeling sad, what do you read, or do you not read when sad? Last year when we locked down for the first time, I felt, if not sad, which I definitely did, but in a really bad place emotionally, and I didn't feel like I wanted to particularly read any of the hundreds of books that I had. And the thing that got me through that was listening to audiobooks. In particular, I downloaded the Harry Potter audiobooks read by Stephen Fry. Those just basically got me through last year. Like, they are books that I've reread multiple times already, and I just found it really soothing to listen to them read by Stephen Fry for the first time, and also to reread books that were really familiar and that just make me happy. So that's something that I've turned to when I was feeling sad. I'd like to think that I would turn to rereading other books when I feel sad, but I haven't actually as yet done that. There's only really a handful of books that I've read more than once, because I tend to think there's so many books that you can't just keep reading the same ones over and over again. But Harry Potter would be one exception. I've read Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising sequence a couple of times. That's definitely something that I would turn to. But when you're feeling sad, I don't see that as a reason not to read. I see that as a reason to read for escapism and for enjoyment. And you never know, it might make you feel happy again. I think people would say that I don't read very cheerful books, but because I read a lot of crime and classic crime and dystopia, but I actually do find that those books make me feel more cheerful. I don't know why, but they do. So, question 5. Most often, do you use reading to escape, to learn, or to critically reflect? I would like to think that I do all three of these. I don't read that much non-fiction, so the learning is... I do read to learn, but I don't do it as much as I probably read for escapism. Critically reflecting, I mean, I do critically reflect on books that I've read, but it isn't my main purpose of reading for me. I think my main purpose of reading is for the enjoyment of it, to find out new things, to find new books that I love. I think that you can learn from fiction books as well. You can learn more about what you like and dislike. You can learn about the ways that different authors have written. As somebody who's always aspired to write myself, I have quite often read a book and thought, wow, I wish I'd written that, or what a great idea, I would love to have written that. That's when you know you've got a really good book. But yeah, so I read for lots of different reasons. Question 6. What is a book that made you laugh out loud? The books that make me laugh out loud the most, and by laugh out loud I mean laugh out loud hysterically until your husband says, why are you laughing so much? Or so much so that you definitely couldn't read them while you're out and about because people would think you were a lunatic, is definitely the Georgia Nicholson series of books by Louise Renison. The Georgia Nicholson series starts off with Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, which was made into a film called Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, which is nowhere near as good as the books, and there are about 10 books in the series and they are hilarious. They just make me laugh so much. They're completely guilty pleasure type of cheering up type books. I actually should have mentioned them earlier about books that cheer me up or affect me emotionally, because they can put me in a good mood. There's just such funny things in them. They are about a teenage girl called Georgia Nicholson and told in a diary-like style. I did read them when I was slightly too old for them. Like, I really would have loved to read them when I was a younger teenager, but I actually didn't. I read them when I was an older teenager or in my early 20s for some of them. But even though they're about sort of teenage girl stuff like school and boyfriends, there are some parts of it that just have me crying with laughter. Question 7 is, what is a book that made you cry? And a better question would be, which books haven't made you cry? Because I cry at books on a very regular basis. I'm trying to think of one that I didn't say in my mid-year freakout tag, because I know that I mentioned a few books from this year in that one. A book that really made me cry when I was young, that I remember just absolute floods of tears, was actually a Christopher Pike book called Whisper of Death, and I cried so much at the end of that. Books make me cry ever so regularly. The Lovely Bones, Desperately Sad. One book that I almost didn't recover enough to actually read the rest of the book was Kate Atkinson's Case Histories. It's her first Jackson Brodie book. And there's just a bit that affected me so much about a young girl who's working for her dad. It was just so tragic. And I guess maybe I related to it in some way, but uncontrollable tears, had to put the book away. I had to come back to it later, and thankfully the rest of the book was not as sad, but oh my goodness, that was so sad. And the only thing I can think that equals that in terms of sadness, and in fact ramps it up a notch, is The Book Thief. I can cry just talking about The Book Thief because that is so desperately, heartbreakingly sad. Anyway, question 8. What is a book that you didn't even know how you felt about? Probably in terms of books that I've read since being on BookTube, I would definitely say the only book that probably applies to from this year is the Ernest Hemingway book that I read, Farewell to Arms. I just didn't know how to feel about it, because it clearly should have been really sad and there were sad parts to it, but I didn't care very much about the characters. The other one that's sort of popping up into my head is the series by Jeff Vandermeer. I think it might start with a book called Annihilation and then it goes on to a book called Acceptance. I can't remember what order the trilogy's in, but I'll put the book covers up here. I read them quite a few years ago and they are really very, very strange books, and I don't recommend them to anybody who gets scared easily. I was very, very on edge throughout reading this trilogy. It's very, very scary in an uneasy sort of way. Very frightening book, but very, very bizarre. So maybe that's a book I don't really know how I feel about. Question 9. Are you more likely to read on a sunny or a cloudy day? I will read any day. A sunny day you can go outside and read if it's not too hot. You can sit in the shade with a nice cold drink and read. On a day where it's not so hot, it's the perfect day to sit inside and read. So both. I'm just as likely to read on a cloudy day as a sunny day. Possibly, I suppose, on sunny days you tend to go out and do other things sometimes. The day I'm probably most likely to read on is a rainy day, because I just think rainy days are perfect for reading and you're not as likely to want to go out. Question 10. Do you usually set the mood when you read? Music, lights, smells, etc. No, I don't. I really do not set the mood to read. I just read. I'll read whenever and wherever, and I don't really need the mood setting. I suppose it might be nice to put a little candle on before you read, but it's never really something I've considered doing, usually because I've got a cat right next to me and he is not so fond of fire, so probably not candles. I'm so often in the mood for reading that I don't think I need to set the mood. Question 11 is the final question, and it's: can you leap from book to book, or do you need buffer time in between them? I will read several books at a time, don't need buffer time. At the moment I'm reading Frankenstein, I'm reading Mansfield Park for the Jane Austen July read along, and I am also listening to Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Nothing would particularly stop me from reading another book, other than I want to get some of those finished first. So I don't often have more than 3 books on the go, 1 audiobook and maybe 2 that I'm reading. I don't find that I need buffer time in between. I can quite happily finish a book in a morning and start a new book in an afternoon. I have even been known to have the next book sitting ready and go straight on to it afterwards. Sometimes I think you need a little bit of time to digest an ending, to just think about what's happened in the book for a little while. But for me that would not usually be more than an hour or so. Some books you keep thinking about anyway, even if you've started new books, so don't really need buffer time usually. I'm really fine with leaping from book to book. So that is all of the 11 questions for the Moody Book Tag. I don't know who has and hasn't already done the Moody Book Tag. If you haven't done it and you're watching this video, please feel free to be tagged by me and do the Moody Book Tag. I would love to see your answers. I really enjoy watching this tag, and as I said, I will leave some of the Moody Book Tags that I've enjoyed in the description box down below so that you can check out some other booktube channels that have done this tag. Thanks for watching my version of the Moody Book Tag. Please do give it a like if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment if you've read any of the books I've talked about in this video and agree or disagree with my comments on them. Please do let me know in the comments if there are any other tags you would like to see me do, or feel free to tag me in any new tags. I quite enjoy answering questions. I hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.